Hey, before we get into the episode, I just want to tell you about my free astrology newsletter called the Starzologer. It comes out every Sunday. It's of a lot of interest for astrologers. I explore cosmic currents moving through the ever-changing skies. Most weeks I explore what's coming up in the week and also share some astrology sticky bits and throw in some ideas about buzzing around. You also get stretched with my Extend Yourself sections. So this newsletter is for aspiring astrologers or anyone who's trying to up their astrological knowledge. It's totally free and you can sign up at starzology.com/newsletter. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hello, Alison. It's great to be here.
So nice to have you once more. So in this episode, we're going to be continuing our closer look at the US election for 2024, and we're going to be looking at the Democratic candidates chart, Kamala Harris.
Yes, this is exciting. If you have already listened to our Donald Trump episode, this is a continuation of that. And if you haven't, please go and listen to that after you listen to this one.
Absolutely. We'll put the links below in all the show notes. And also we did do an exploration of the US original chart, the birth chart for the US.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more things we're going to be talking about for this particular election period.
Yeah. I mean, it's unavoidable.
Well,
even though we're in Canada, this is what's happening right now. This is the big election year.
Yeah, it's just happening, and we're just kind of paying attention to it. We're giving it a nod. We're not really, I would say, political astrologers. Well, I'm not, but certainly these things are happening. It's current affairs. So let's have a closer look at her chart.
Yes, great.
Okay, so the chart details we have is that she was born at 9:28 p.m. October the 20th, 1964.
Yeah.
In Oakland, California, USA.
Right.
So that is a very good birth time.
Yes, and it's AA rated. The Rodin rating is perfect.
Fantastic.
We love that. It's
fantastic.
a great era to be in where all of the information is out there.
That's right. So this particular chart then returns an ascendant of 25 Gemini. Yeah. Which then, of course, sets the tone for the whole chart.
Right.
So I thought maybe I'll just go quickly through the broad strokes of this chart and then we can perhaps discuss things in more detail.
Sounds great.
All right. So first up, if we're going to be, I always want to look at the balances, which is the main, it's like the broad strokes going on behind the scenes. So when we're looking at the elements and modes, she has a strong fixed mode, which does impart a little rigidity at times. And when she's set her course, she's likely to stay with it unless she is very well impressed to make a change to her mind. The elements are in balance and the polarities are in balance, and actually the hemispheres are all in balance. So it's quite a balanced chart. If we want it, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for these balances. And I do have her chart. If you click through to the blog post related to this on the podcast show notes, there's an actual picture of her chart there for us. So this ascendant in Gemini.
Yeah.
It's a good and solid ascendant. So if we look at her ascendant complex, she's got the North Node conjoined her ascendant in the first house. So that's a really strong position for that North Node.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's, of course, the key word right there is destiny. So she is in charge of her own destiny, I want to say, right, at this point.
Yeah.
There are also some other aspects. The ascendant is square Venus, and then it's trine the Sun, very nice. Trine Mercury, very nice. Trine Saturn, very nice. And then sextile Mars. So it's quite an engaged ascendant degree. Yeah. It's not casually just flapping there in the breeze.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting there. So with Gemini ascendants, this tends to make the person gregarious, communicative.
Yes.
A good orator.
Yes.
And things in that vein.
Yes.
All right. So let's just then have a look quickly at the chart ruler complex. So because she's got Gemini rising, Mercury's then the chart ruler. And Mercury's in Scorpio in the 5th house, which is quite a good position. And this makes Mercury is also the evening planet. So what it means is it's set after the sun. So this gives the impression when she's left the room, this is what people say about her, they're going to be saying, well, she's well-read, intellectual, a good communicator, or something in those veins. And it is conjoined the Sun, which is great. Mercury does have a few challenging aspects, though.
Yeah.
It is opposition the Moon.
Yeah. Well, her parents divorced when she was 7, apparently.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that could be, it's,
reflected.
one of those.
Absolutely.
Right, for sure.
Absolutely.
And also there's been, not to jump in with the controversy, but it's while we're talking about this, she has been criticized as having really sort of not been very front and center in her. I mean, and the vice president is rarely front and center, but the criticism of her is that, like, who even knows what her positions are? Like, what does she stand for? And it's becoming obviously clearer now that she is the candidate. I mean, up until like a month ago, it was Biden, and there was no reason to know anything
and weren't
about.
we relieved we didn't do the Biden episode?
Oh my God. So much so. I remember at the time going, let's just wait on that one. I'm not sure. Sure enough. But yeah, so that the fact that she has Mercury in Scorpio,
yes,
which is not a super pleasant position for it. It can be great as a person, but it also is not necessarily the most forthcoming and the most easily understood of the Mercuries.
Yeah, that's true.
So you might be misunderstood. You might say things that are kind of off the cuff or snarky, and then people take it seriously, or you might be a little secretive and people assume what they will. And it's just, as a politician, that explains to me a few things about the way she's perceived, and people kind of having not.
Who is this woman?
Right.
Yes.
And I see that as definitely emblematic of Mercury. And
that's right. So we would hope that she has her script writers and her
working overtime.
Yes.
For sure.
Mercury is also set with quadrant Chiron, which is neither here nor there, semi-square Venus and semi-square Pluto. I'm really not going to go into there. They are minor aspects. And then the soft aspect is Mercury's trine Saturn. Now, note, this is the second time we've heard Saturn already today. We haven't even got there.
Yeah.
So that is a good position. Trine the North Node, which is that point that we just said what's on the ascendant.
Yeah.
It's also actually trine the ascendant, so it's working well with her. So this makes me think that when she meets you face to face and she's schmoozing and pressing the flesh, she's making the far better impression than us as the general public looking in.
Yes. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, because her career has been all about the law, that's that Saturn position.
Is she a lawyer?
Well, all politicians pretty much are lawyers, but yes, definitely a lawyer, a prosecutor, and the former what's the word? God, the former California district attorney. That's the word, district attorney.
Okay.
So yeah, the highest lawyer of the land, basically, in California. So, and that was her first elected position, and so she's
in public office, right?
Yeah, a law and order, criminal, putting criminals away, that whole thing.
Yes, yeah. My goodness.
Yeah,
and there's that Mercury in Scorpio,
right?
Which, chop it off.
Well, and one of the main things that she talks about, that she put away sex criminals and sex traffickers, and
yes, she'll stamp it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. But there it is. Mercury's very well placed. And this also makes me think that she's not going to be the sort of person who needs to waffle or waver on her position.
Yeah.
And she may feel that if she stated it once, where she stands on these issues, she stated it.
Yeah.
So you've got that as well. That she stands by her word. I think. Yeah.
And that's another tough thing as a politician. I think that's one of those things where, as a politician, you're not allowed really to change your mind, which is unfortunate, because when people do change their minds in real life, as a human, it's usually a good thing. It's usually because we've grown and we've evolved and we've realized things as we get older and wiser. And as a politician, it's like, oh no, you thought this back then, and now you think something different. Well, what's wrong with you? It's
well,
but it's a good thing to change your mind. So to have all of that fixed energy is, it's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
And we think not to always compare female politicians with other female politicians, but that was one of the things that people held against Hillary Clinton, another Scorpio, was that she had changed her mind a couple of times. She was a Republican in college. She was one of the Yeah. And then, famously Democrat, obviously. And they held all of her changed opinions against her,
yes.
Until death.
Stay the course. Stay the course. Yeah. So interesting on that. That is then the chart ruler, which is a highly important planet, and it's Mercury. Mm-hmm. So she's clearly using that. Yeah. And next we would just have a quick look at the sun complex. So the sun is in Libra, and that is not a really good position for the sun. It thwarts individuality for the collective. So anyway. And it has a couple of aspects there too. Of course, it's conjoined the Mercury, what we said.
And it's an out of sign conjunction, so that's interesting.
Yeah, well, that's weakening it altogether.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Sun is then on the hard aspect, semi-square Uranus, sesquiquadrate Chiron. Again, I really wouldn't go down that unless we're really digging into her chart. Mm-hmm. And then, but the soft aspects are good. The Sun is trine to Saturn. Hello, Saturn.
Yeah.
We're coming around to that. Yeah. It's trying that north node of destiny. So her identity is connected to her destiny clearly. Yeah. And the Sun is again trying the ascendant. So she will, when you meet her face to face, which is what your ascendant is, you're going to see the true character of the woman. Yeah. And of course, then it's trying the midheaven, which is what we are now discovering, that this is someone who, honestly, I'd never heard of a month ago. Mm-hmm. But suddenly she's risen to...
Yeah. Cover of Time magazine, and
people are digging her chart out and thinking, how do you spell her name? Yeah. And then just moving on quickly then to the moon complex, which would be the next major thing we would look at. So the moon is in Aries, so be it, in the 11th house, and let's look at the hard aspects there. So the moon is opposition the sun, and this is this tricky thing, the parental opposition, right? Frequently, not always, but frequently, the parents do disagree about bringing up the children, and they can't always see eye to eye on things. Yeah. So you do have that. And then, of course, Mercury would be the moon would be opposing her Mercury at the same time. Yeah. So where we have feelings and emotions that in Aries are going to perhaps be, I don't want to say throwing tantrums, but she's still going to want to stay her ground and stick to what she said and do what I say. Yeah. Is important. Again,
that's interesting too. Sorry to interrupt. I've never seen, because Aries is opposite Libra, but it's her Mercury is in the very last degree of Scorpio.
The first degree
of Scorpio, and the moon is in one of the final degrees of Aries. So it's a moon opposite Mercury, and they're both ruled by Mars. Yeah.
Well, this is what we would call a dissociate opposition. Wow. So it is slightly weaker than the one that's where the moon's opposing the sun.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of Mars energy in conflict in one person.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Again, then we've just got the moon sesquiquadrate Uranus and semi-square Chiron. Again, I'm mentioning it in passing. Yeah. So let's have a look at these soft things. So what soft things do we have where it's going to tease the moon out for her? Well, the moon is trine Mars, which is just what we've been speaking about. So, Mars is disposing the moon, and it's actually, disposing that Mercury too. So it's engaged. There's no kind of loose end here. Yeah. Now, the moon is trine the south node, and therefore is sextile the north node, which is just, I mentioned it in passing, it sextiles Saturn. Hello, Saturn. Mm-hmm. And then the moon is sextile the ascendant. So it is connected to that ascendant, but not as strongly as what the sun is and the chart ruler is. But the point is that these things we've looked at, the ascendant, the sun, the moon, and the chart ruler, are well engaged. And I don't want to say she's a balanced person. I want to say she's a put together person. Things are not stepping past her. No.
Yeah. And it was interesting as I was obviously doing a bit of research and trying to sort of encapsulate the entire woman in the course of an afternoon.
As we do.
Not to say I do my homework at the last minute.
No, of course not. Of course
Virgo. But her Wikipedia is incredibly well, I mean, and of course it is Wikipedia, so yes, curated, sure, would be another word. Yeah. But as you say, like, didn't find any loose ends. Like, there's a lot of controversy about certain views and certain things that she's championed, but not in the sense of like, did she, didn't she, does she believe this or that? It's all very clear. She's been very solid, very clear, even when she has changed her mind. For example, about the legalization of marijuana. That was one thing that she was very against early in her career as a prosecutor, of course, prosecuting drug crimes and, cracking down. But she very diligently was saying that she didn't believe that was just. As a person, when she'd be interviewed, that she would prosecute the law as it stands,
right?
But that
to the letter of the law,
to the letter. But her belief personally, and she actually was in favor when California repealed or passed whatever law that was that decriminalized marijuana. That she was for that, and so she's never wavered on her personal belief about that.
Right.
Which, as a person of color, a woman of color, and she's half Indian, half Black. So, this is part of her persona, obviously, and someone who is standing up for people of color who are disproportionately incarcerated in the U.S. for drug crimes, especially, and having that be decriminalized would have to be part of her persona, or that would be, a very slippery kind of not great thing, Yes. So it's interesting to read these things that you think, oh, is that a controversy? Well, oh no, she's never wavered about that. That's always been part of her agenda.
This is the thing, it's likely to continue. This particular, I don't want to say the toughness of her, but I think,
have to be, my God, to be the U.S. president, especially as a woman. That was,
Oh yes,
all of the female politicians who. I hesitate to British, Prime Minister. Yeah, exactly. And Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir. They're not to say that women are by nature not tough, but as a politician, you really have to sort of make your mark and almost be tougher than the men just to make your point, which is also a little bit scary, because the U.S. is already embroiled in 2 major wars at this point, and we really hope that there will be a de-escalation and a truce and, less civilians being killed. But you never know. Honestly, there's no voting for an anti-war candidate. You can't win. You can't be like, well, I'm for peace. I'm for not having civilians die in the streets or having hospitals bombed. And there's no way to vote for that. So you just have to kind of vote on all the other issues that are far less important and hope for the best.
Yeah. It's quite a challenge, right? Yeah.
Of course, we in Canada have the blissful ability to
not just cheering off on the sidelines.
Exactly. Our prime minister is almost never going to, bomb anyone. So,
well, no, we kind of
occasionally we'll chip in, but
no. Yeah. So I did go on further, and of course I did her dispositor tree because, dang, why wouldn't I?
Oh yeah, love the dispositor tree.
We kind of, it's one thing I always like to do because it does give you another way to look at this chart without the actual chart.
Yeah.
So what she has is she's actually got 2 trees. She's got a committee tree with 4 planets in it, and she has a single planet in rulership tree. Let's talk about that. It's the planet we've been mentioning from the moment we started, and it's Saturn. This is a highly, highly well-engaged planet for her. It's the most elevated planet. It's conjoined the midheaven in the 9th house, strong. And Saturn is the planet that really rules politics and government and all the red tape and so on. So this is very much, when you see Saturn on a midheaven and they're in politics, it does bode well.
Yeah.
That this is really perhaps where she was meant to be. And then if we look at this committee tree, we've got the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. These are all your personal planets, all on this top line, all in this committee. So they're all equally important to her when she's making decisions, and they're all the personal planets.
Interesting.
So she's likely to say, well, how do I feel about this? What do I think about this? How will this affect men? How will this affect women? And so on. So these planets are all top line.
Wow.
And then on top of that, as you know, with our dispositor trees, we like to pick up links with aspects because they reinforce. And all these second level planets have aspects from their one above. So where Mars is disposing the moon, it is also trine the moon. Where Mars is disposing Neptune, it is squaring Neptune. So they're engaged. They're working together. Just moving slightly further along, where Venus is disposing Jupiter, it is trining Jupiter. I mean, Venus trine Jupiter is a great aspect for anybody's chart.
For sure.
And then below Jupiter, we have Chiron. But then when we get to her chart ruler, Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury is disposing Uranus and Pluto in Virgo, and they are both semi-square. So there are aspects in all links from this committee. Yeah. This woman is put together.
Yeah.
She's organized. She knows what she wants. And she's going to stick by what she's doing. Yeah. There's not this random, what do we call it?
Waffling.
Yeah, not a free radical or some crazy planet on the side. Yeah. The only planet that stands alone, that she stands alone, is Saturn. What more do you want?
Yeah.
Saturn is in Aquarius, but that is still its own sign, so it's still well placed.
Yes.
So, yeah. And also just cycling back to that Sun in the fifth house, this is frequently a position of people who do not have children.
Interesting. Because she does not have children, which would also make her pretty unique in U.S. politics, especially as a woman. She is married and has been married for quite a while to the same man. She married him in 2014, so they've been married for a good 11 years now, or 10 years, sorry. But she was... well, of course, famously, Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, made some comment about the Democratic Party being composed of childless cat ladies or something. And I don't believe he was talking about her, because I think that quote came from like a long time ago or something. I'm not sure when that quote came from. We're not getting into like the vice presidential charts at this point. No. We may in the future if they become interesting, but at this point, I don't find J.D. Vance that interesting. But that quote has become like fire for the internet. Of course, the internet is composed of cats. We all know that. And I don't know if she is a cat or a dog person. Doesn't matter. But she does not have children. And
interesting. Yeah.
That is super interesting.
But that's what I say, because astrologically, frequently, if you have the sun in the fifth house, the sun is your independence. It's yourself. And it needs to be satisfied for itself. So perhaps she's expressing this sun in the fifth house through her creative projects or what she's giving birth to that are not children. And you do get that frequently with this position. That's just interesting.
It is interesting, for sure. So another thing that is particularly interesting to me, because I love generational astrology, is this conjunction of Uranus in Pluto, and that's in Virgo, which is a generational marker. It's the marker of the 60s. It's conjunct Venus in Virgo. And that's all in her fourth house.
There's a stellium,
It's a stellium, And it's also, she was born a good, 5 days before my partner. So
really?
He's a Scorpio, but he was born 5 days before her in 1964. So he's got, all the same placements, except for, of course, the moon and the ascendant and whatnot. And Mercury. No, he's got Mercury in Scorpio as well. So, I'm quite familiar with some of this chart. But... the Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo in the 60s was the marker of the counterculture, of the revolution, of all of the colonies rising up against their oppressors in the 60s and throwing off the shackles of imperialism and all that stuff. Yes. So to have somebody in she would be the first of that generation to be elected president if she wins. Because all the others have been baby boomers and older.
So this aspect, this Uranus conjunct Pluto, is a definite marker for the 60s. It's that synodic cycle beginning point, and Uranus is still applying, and I'm not sure if it had already gone past and so on. We haven't looked that far, but it's built right in, and she's got it in a stellium. So it's in Virgo. So Mercury's ruling the stellium. So again, her chart ruler has a lot to say about her. I want to say the essence of her core, which is this Uranus Pluto thing. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and as champion of women, I mean, that's obviously she is a woman, but also in her political career, she has been a champion of women.
Is that right?
In a lot of legal.
I'm liking her more every moment. Yes. Yes, I know. I mean, I'm not politically mind myself, but I mean, when we now and again we have to go and vote in elections and this and that, and people say, "Well, who are you voting for?" I'm just saying the woman, But
interesting. And just before anybody says, well, also Obama was born in the 60s. Yes, he was. He was born in 1961. and he had Pluto in Virgo, but Uranus was in Leo, so he did not have that conjunction.
Yeah, this is the absolute generational marker, isn't it?
Yeah.
So going back to the major aspect patterns, we have mentioned the stellium, which is dynamic and certainly highly important to be interpreted, but she also has 2 T-squares.
Yeah.
So she's got the Mars T-square, where Mars is in Leo in the 3rd house, and it's being squared by Jupiter opposing Neptune.
Yeah.
So this energy is being expressed through that 3rd house, Mars in Leo energy.
Yeah.
And that is really the symbol of a gladiator, you just imagine it. So she's got this active, proactive, and again, the Scorpio is being triggered.
Yeah.
And then her 2nd T-square is the Jupiter T-square. And Jupiter is again in Taurus in the 12th house, but it's now being squared by Saturn, and Mars.
Yeah.
So Mars is opposition Saturn, so there will be that sort of dynamic challenge there between young and old, and young men and old men, and there is that challenge, but it will go out through the 12th house. That might be the thing that keeps her up at night, because it's 12th house stuff.
Right.
Whereas the Mars T-square has the 2 planets that rule Pisces, Jupiter and Neptune, opposing each other. And of course, Jupiter will be more prominent because it's a visible planet.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's one of those things where if she wins, that will become really interesting. And we're going to really want to look at that.
Yeah.
If she becomes president, that's going to be, that might actually have to do with Supreme Court placements, which will become a thing, because Donald Trump, when he was president, got to appoint 3 justices.
Did he?
And famously overturned Roe v. Wade and all of these the conservative court now is very much the first time it's been so conservative in living memory. Right. And if she wins, that will probably be something very important to her legacy.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But this chart as a whole suggests, I want to say, an upright woman. Mm. Because Saturn is so well placed, she virtually has to abide by the rules.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's all that, prosecutor stuff. For good or ill, the law is the law. And that's kind of been her stance on a couple of things where she's been challenged about putting, drug offenders in prison forever. And these things which we've now in 2020 such and such come to think of as not so great, and people being, put in jail forever because they had, they were in possession of marijuana or whatever. And some of these opinions, or not opinions, but these legal precedents that she upheld as a prosecutor. And it's interesting. It will definitely, she is a law and order candidate and person. And
so she is likely to want to not only stick by what the law says, but create new laws in line with her beliefs, which, as we know, are fixed, scorpionic, Geminian. Yeah. So, So I don't think there's going to be any, I don't want to say jiggery-pokery or whatever, whatever the words are, but it's, Yeah, it's funny. We don't have any controversies that have come out, and I'm sure that there are tons of people digging deep, trying to find the dirt. It's not been revealed yet. Yes. Yeah. So the astrology for her is it's a pretty solid chart. If this was your chart or whoever's chart, it's a pretty solid chart.
I like what you said right before we started recording, that that as soon as you saw her chart, you said you couldn't believe it that she wasn't president already.
Yeah, because of the way this chart is. It's solid, and it's we might not like everything she stands for, but she stands by what she stands for. So that in itself is admirable. So anyway, Okay, so we've had a high-level look at Kamala Harris's chart. This is part of our US election 2024 preview
series.
Series. We've got a couple more charts to look at. We're going to be looking at a couple more episodes coming out before the election in November. And we just want to really discuss our chart and see, what does the astrology say? We're not trying to put our political opinion onto it. We're trying to say...
And we're not predicting anything.
Not yet, we're not. But, we're having a look at a chart so that you can perhaps get a grasp of someone who we don't really know very well. Whereas old Trump, we know him from years gone by. This lady, we've only discovered her like 6 weeks ago. So, So if you have found value in this episode, please do consider sharing it with anybody who would be interested. And you can email us at starzology@gmail.com. You can also send us any questions you like by clicking the top link on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to send us a text. And please do follow Arwynne
at mspink.net. That's mspink.net. And I blog about sometimes astrology, but also books and movies and popular culture and history and science and whatnot.
Yeah, stuff that interests everybody, really. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Arwynne, I want to thank you once more for joining us here today.
Thank you. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.